This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is Lindsay McCall from Jupiter, Florida.
And this is Diane Castema from Arroyo Grande, California. And you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show, brought to you this week by the United States Para-Equestrian Association with the support of EquityMFG.com. And we also have our producer, Glenn, with us.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Diane, I
Hi.
love town names in California. You have the coolest sounding names of towns, and you live in one of them.
That's right. I live halfway between L.A. and San Francisco on the Central Coast, and I am sitting in a fog bank, and it is 62 degrees right now.
Oh, maybe not so much then. I take it all back.
I like the temperature. I don't know. It's a little hot here. That temperature sounds wonderful.
I drive my horses every day of the year in a sweatshirt.
Oh,
I never
sounds
have
lovely.
to go. I never have to go heavier. I never have to go lighter.
Yeah, it is kind of right there in
wonderful.
the middle of those two cities is kind of almost the perfect spot, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely gorgeous. And I don't even have flies because we always have the coastal breeze.
Okay, now we just
Oh.
hate you. So just
Yeah, I'm sure now we're all just jealous.
yeah,
So.
that's right.
Maybe in September when we're all burning up under flames or something.
Yeah, that's true. You do have that problem and the whole earthquake thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right.
Makes driving more fun when the earth's moving.
I know, I did. We actually felt an earthquake the other day. I was sitting on my bed reading the newspaper and drinking coffee, and my mom said, "Was that an earthquake?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. The bed moved."
And before we get on with the rest of the show, I just wanted to remind everybody that Reese and Philip will be back again next week, as always, so look for them then. All yours, Lindsay.
Sure. So, Diane, thank you for coming on the show as my co-host. And for those out there who do not know Diane, Diane is a para-equestrian driver. She competes around the world, and she was actually on the para-driving team in 2012. So what's kind of going on with you lately, Diane?
Well, I've been busy showing my pair. When I've competed at the World Championships, it's always with a single horse. And I have a pair of Welsh cobs, and I compete with them at the advanced level here in the western half of the U.S. And I'm also vice president of United States Driving for Disabled, and I've been really working hard on getting more para-equestrian drivers into driving, and we've been doing a series of clinics. And we did one in California in March, and we will be doing one August 10th and 11th in New Jersey.
Nice. And what was the participation like in the one in California?
Yeah, in the one in California, it was great. We had clinicians, myself and Hardy Zanke and Jody Cutler, and they are both ADS and USCF judges, and Hardy is international judge and para-equestrian international judge in driving also. And I was thinking, we'll have 3 or 4 people, and we had 9 people come to the clinic. And we offered a try it and see if you like it, where if there was a para-equestrian rider who wanted to come and say, hey, maybe I want to do driving, we put him in a carriage and handed him the reins, and we had him doing a dressage, and we had him do a hazard, and we had him do cones, and they were introduced to the sport of combined driving. And maybe they only did it at a walk, but we had Hardy say, no, 51 seconds, you can do it faster. And he did it. And then someone was done, and they said, wow, I can do this sport. And so they were so excited, and it was just great. We had great feedback, and the clinic is open to everyone, and it's free to our para-equestrians.
Yes, it's free, everybody who wants to come. Please come.
That's right.
Boy,
And
I know.
And if you've got your own horse and carriage, bring them, and the stabling is free. And we're going to, in August, we have Sarah Schmidt, who has represented the U.S. Multiple times in the Pony World Championships, and so she is there as our main clinician, along with myself. I will be there, and then Ann Miles of the Carriage Barn, who really works a lot with the disabled and driving, and it is hosted at Celtic Charms Horsemanship therapeutic horsemanship program in New Jersey, and they're donating the use of the facility. So we're very excited. We've even talked Hope Hand into coming to the clinic.
I was just going to say, she's been talking about it like crazy. We were in the hotel all week in California for the CPEDI 3-star, and she was like, oh, I'm excited. I'm going to be a paradriver. So I think it's great. There's some crossover happening. So we're having paradressage riders going right into paradriving.
That's right. Well, and it's nice to just, have the opportunity, or at least to even just share knowledge back and forth. So,
yeah,
and
I really think it's
so
awesome.
much. You can go so much faster in driving, and if you have that need for speed, that's what I like. So.
And as a paradriver, tell us about your classification, why you're classified where you are.
I am in paradriving. There's grade 1 and grade 2, and grade 1 is the most disabled and basically is wheelchair users that are not ambulatory. And I'm a grade 1. I'm paralyzed and in a wheelchair. And then your grade 2 drivers would be not as disabled. Oftentimes, maybe you're missing a limb, an arm, or just disabled a little bit, and mostly arms and a little bit on the legs for driving, for holding yourself into the carriage. It's a little bit different than the riding with the way the classification is, because yes, you are sitting in a carriage, which can give you support a little better than on the back of a horse.
And you just had a show, didn't you? I mean, I shouldn't say didn't you. I knew you had a show. We tried to get together all week in California. How did the show go for you last week?
Oh, that was a great show. It was the Summer Festival CDE in Wilton, California, and we actually had 3 paraequestrian drivers competing there. I was actually, and we were competing in amongst the able-bodied drivers, and it was in different levels. We had Jenny Leal, who was competing at training level single horse with her halflinger, which she won her class, which was very exciting. And you might have seen her over at your dressage show, because she went over to get classified, and so she would be a grade 2 driver. So we're very excited about that, since we have another driver in our pool of drivers. And then Bev White, who's president of United States Driving for Disabled, was competing intermediate with her pony, and she came in 3rd. And then I was actually the only advanced entry. Therefore, you would think I would have won my class. But unfortunately, my young horse in my pair was so good on the marathon, and he acquired a really bad boot rub from his boot. Oh. And so he was slightly off on Sunday, and so the vet said no go. So we went. We were all harnessed up and ready to go and back to the barn. But that was great. And actually, earlier this year in May, and we had 5 paraequestrian drivers competing in Woodland at the Vineyard Classic CDE. And there again, we had one at training, and we had 2 at preliminary, and 1 at intermediate, and 1 at advanced. And that was Jenny, Bev, and myself. And we also had Tracy Bowman, who is actually a top eventing trainer and just came back from Germany, because they're trying to qualify for the WEG in eventing, and she's a coach and trainer. And so she's kind of one of these cross-discipline people. And then we had Stephanie Putnam, who's a quadriplegic, who competed, and so she did very well and came in 2nd in her division. And we're 5 drivers, and none of us were competing against each other. And then we just had quadriplegic driver Sarah St. Peters competed at Bromont in Canada this last weekend, and she won her division with training single horse. She just got a new horse, and this was her first full complete event. So.
Yeah, and then you have the World Championships in 2014 coming, huh?
Yes, we do, and we hope to hear next week, the first week of July, the FEI meets, and they will choose who will host the World Championships, and 2 bids have been put in. One is Sandringham, England, and there's actually an event going on this weekend there, and Boots Wright, our chef, who was our chef to keep at the World Championships last year, is a judge there. So we've told her to scout the facility and let us know and see if she can round up horses if it's there. And the other location is in Germany, and I cannot pronounce the name, so I'm not going to try. And that event would be, if they get it, it would be in September, and it would be the weekend before the World Singles Driving Championships, which would be kind of a back-to-back event for the facility. So both locations are exciting, and what's even more exciting is that 2 countries have put in bids to host the World Championships.
Evan is the strategic officer for the Devonwood Equestrian Center in Sherwood, Oregon. His family's very involved up there with their dressage shows, and he's also been very involved with the para-dressage. And one of those shows that he was the show secretary for was the Paralympic Selection Trials and National Championships in 2012. So we're excited to kind of talk to him a little bit about show management, show secretary, and everything else he's done.
Reese, Phillip, and I have been raving about our EquityMFG.com manure forks over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure a lot of you are saying, they're just saying that because they're paid to. Well then, let's hear from some other people about what they think. Here is Flex and Fork user Eric Bates, Pasofino owner from Kentucky, on their sturdiness.
I've been using the Flex and Fork for almost a year now. I looked it up on the internet as being a quality-made fork, and that's what I was looking for. I had already replaced 2 or 3, the manure forks that you would get at a farm supply store, and I wanted something of good quality that would last, and this has just been more than I could ever ask for.
With the Shake and Fork, you save time and money by just using this motorized fork every day. Here is Leslie from Horse Nation on how much bedding she is saving using the Shake and Fork.
It really does. It helps you sift through, so you're not throwing out as much. I think Equity says that the forks probably save you $1 a stall per day in between bedding saved and labor, time you're saving, and I believe them for sure.
And then there is our terrific listener Aubrey, who cleans barns for a living, on how much time she saves with the Shake and Fork.
It's funny because you have to kind of slow down when you do it, just because you have to let the fork shake for a second. And so it kind of took me a little while to say, okay, just slow down, because I tend to do them a little manically anyway, just because I have so many to do. But you do them faster. Even though you're physically moving slower, you're doing the stalls faster. But a couple of the barns that I do use sawdust, and it's amazing how fast I can go through those barns. And it's pretty much cut down half, and I'm using so much less shaving, so it's going to end up saving a bunch of people a bunch of money of the barns that I do.
Okay, you've heard them. It's not just Jamie and I saying this. What are you waiting for? Go to EquityMFG.com and get yours today. EquityMFG.com. You will thank us every single day.
Hi, Evan. It's so nice to have you on the show today, and I wanted to introduce you to Diane. You probably don't know her very well, but she's one of our para drivers.
Excellent. Hi, Diane. Nice to be here.
Hi, Evan.
Well, and Evan, I've known you for a couple years now. You've been very involved with the Dressage Affair out there in Del Mar, California.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also very involved at home with Devonwood, which is your family's facility, and you guys do a lot of dressage shows. And kind of, I guess, tell us a little bit about you so we can get to know you better.
Sure. So first off, for anybody that doesn't know our family's business, so Devonwood Equestrian Center is our family-run farm out here in Sherwood, Oregon. For anybody that's geographically challenged, we are below Washington, above California. So most people, I think a lot of people aren't as keen on dressage as when they think about Oregon in general for dressage, but we're kind of the up-and-coming stable, if you will, as far as shows go. We've recently kind of diversified from dressage show facility and started experimenting with some different disciplines. So the facility started out for the first 12 years essentially only doing dressage training and running shows. And then just in these past couple of years, we started doing jumping shows and inviting some of the other disciplines of equestrian sport into the facility to kind of see what those things are like and to see if we can't attract some more equestrian sport in the Pacific Northwest.
that's wonderful. I know you guys have been really growing. That's wonderful. And then you personally, with you being so involved with the dressage shows, not only in Devonwood but also down in Del Mar, gosh, you've held so many roles that I know that you're the person I come to at shows and say, can you help me with this? So tell us a little bit about what you've been involved with that, and then with para dressage as well.
For sure. So, well, it kind of started, I've got a twin brother for anyone that doesn't know, and he and I originally kind of started the volunteering at all the horse shows that my sister used to compete at, which is kind of where my various hat wearing skills started evolving. So essentially back in about 1999, my sister was just starting her show career, and my brother and I used to end up wandering around the showgrounds at many of the events that she was participating in. And we were always looking for something to do, and a lot of times there would be some incentive for whatever we could participate in doing as a volunteer. So running kind of became our typical go-to job, which for those not involved in dressage is just the running of tests from the judges' stand back to the show office so that they can be scored and calculated and then placed. So we kind of started out with just doing just basic jobs, and then we worked our way up. So we started announcing shows, and then my brother kind of became the go-to announcer, which is where he's kind of landed now at most shows. And I landed in scoring and kind of ran with that and really kind of developed my passion for how fast we could get scores out the door and to see what technical challenges we could overcome as far as building results platforms that could accommodate the systems that we're working with today to handle the management of our shows.
That's what I said when I go to him at the horse show, especially in Del Mar. When I see him there, I'm like, "Hey, Evan, can you get me this?" And he's like, "Here you go." "Hey, Evan, do you know where I can get a ride to this?" And he's like, "Yeah, go ride that."
That's the goal, and we're trying.
That person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the goal is, and that's kind of my passion now for as far as my work with Devonwood goes, is we're working on building a couple of more centralized systems that the equestrian sport at large can use to access services that are more pivotal at the events that they're participating in. So dressage is our primary concern when we're building some of our tools out that we're working on now. But we are looking at kind of the bigger picture to say to our fellow equestrians, if you will, what can we do for you to make this sport better as a whole, on the technical front, and how can we make it easier to participate in and get back to enjoying, the sport itself as opposed to, dealing with, paper-based entry forms and all the craziness that surrounds the show office of the somewhat tedious tasks that go into actually getting on your horse.
And, I wanted to, I know Kim Keenan and you guys have worked together for a while down in the Dressage Affair in Del Mar, and I'd like to go back to that and kind of talk about that, because you have seen para dressage go from, this borrowed horses, and now we're actually using our own horses as part of the shows. What have you seen with the para dressage coming in? Because that was new, that was brand new in Del Mar when you first saw it. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think when I first saw the competitors that were involved in para, I think everybody, I myself, I was kind of caught off guard. I think when my first exposure technically was back when I was running a back-to-back CDI at Cara Whittam's show facility that she uses up in Quebec. And that was actually where I'd first seen para-equestrian sport actually, going on. And so when I saw it come down into California, when it came to the Dressage Affair, it was one of those things. I hadn't seen it. There was probably a 4-year gap between when I originally saw it up in Canada and then when I started seeing it coming down into California. Literally one of the shows we were running. So I was really in awe of the personal challenges that they overcame in order to get to the show, and then even just the process of preparing for a show. There's a lot of mental processes that even able-bodied riders go through for getting on their horse and then prepping for their ride and then actually getting in the ring and doing it all, and to add any personal challenges that they have going on top of that just kind of seems exceptional to me. Most of the riders that I've seen that have participated in para-equestrian sport really have a lengthy story that kind of goes along with their career. Maybe they were originally participating in able-bodied sport through equestrian sport. I know a couple of the riders that I saw in Gladstone last year at the Festival of Champions. There were a couple of people that were competing there that had started their affiliation with dressage in able-bodied dressage, and then had moved on to para-equestrian as some challenge developed in their life, and their willingness to kind of go on and embrace something that's very new in the sport. I think there's a lot of people that have questions about how relevant they might be, and I think they're giving them a run for their money. I think they're seeing more and more that para-equestrians are on an equal, if not have much more working against them, as far as the playing field goes. And I think that is kind of becoming more true as the days roll on for para-equestrian sport.
So do you think that it's been a good thing to include the para-dressage with the regular able-bodied CDIs?
That's not a question. Yeah, I was going to say that's not really a question I'm qualified to answer, but I would definitely say that the powers that be in dressage sport are seeing more and more of a reason to start including in the creation of the rules and policies that govern sport in the U.S. and around the world. I think more and more we're starting to see that those people that are in charge of making the decisions in our sport, I think they're starting to realize that maybe there isn't such a big divider that separates para-equestrian from able-bodied sport.
Because in driving, I'm paralyzed and I compete in the driving, and we just compete with everyone else in all of our classes in the carriage and
sure.
Everything. And so we don't quite have enough drivers yet to have our separate classes. And so
right.
It's been neat to watch the para-dressage growing and being able to have their own classes at these various events.
Definitely. I think definitely the camaraderie between the para-equestrian and the able-bodied riders is growing. I think it starts as like most things, most people don't embrace what's different very easily, and I think it started as the idea that maybe they both deserve their own separate spaces in equestrian sport, and I think that barrier is kind of starting to come down, more and more as it's gaining popularity, as we're seeing more riders that are coming into para-equestrian sport. I think we're starting to realize that we don't need this barrier that has been basically created for us to separate para-equestrianism and able-bodied equestrian riding.
Diane, do you find it to be, since you guys compete together, do you guys find that driving, that I guess that barrier isn't there so much, or how do you feel?
Yeah, the barrier isn't really there. I mean, our biggest issue has been just, when you go to a show, letting the organizers and everything know that, you're in a wheelchair and can you have a few accommodations? You need a stall that you can get your own horse in and out of, or, not the one that there's a step up. The benefit to carriage driving, of course, is everything's on wheels, so if you're in a wheelchair, usually anything accessible to the carriages also works for the wheelchair, and so that's you. But there's various rules that we've had to, like walking the course, because the driving is just like eventing where, you're supposed to go out and walk the course, and, we can't physically walk the courses. And so getting permission to use motorized vehicles and et cetera. But now what's exciting to me is that there's enough drivers now that most of the organizers in the U.S. in driving have dealt with para-equestrians and are very open. And most organizers and show secretaries are open if you let them know ahead of time. I mean, if you
Definitely.
all of a sudden arrive and you're like, and they had no idea you were coming, they want to help. They don't want to be put in an embarrassing position. Like, oh my God, there's no handicap porta potty anywhere near where we've stayed with you.
You know about that one.
Yeah, you just put it there. The biggest compliment I got when I started showing was that a friend of mine, Hardy Zanke, that many know, and he just said to me once, he said, "I love it that you come to the shows now, Diane." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "I love using that handicap porta potty." I love it. If they're only going to get one, that's what they get now, or whatever. And so it was pretty funny. I said, "Well, as long as I don't have to wait for you."
Yeah, I think from the organizer.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, from the organizer standpoint, I think it's equally kind of cool to get to that point now where, for me, I know this just from my experience, just as you were describing, like the accessible porta potties and like the ramps for getting on your horse or anything. For the trials last year, we were looking at some serious challenges based on the venue for the trials, and the number of times that I think we had to kind of become ambassadors, from the able-bodied perspective, of becoming ambassadors for our para-equestrians. I think it's good for para-equestrianism to know that the able-bodied riders and organizers are all in joining this ambassador position. When we host events like this, and so when we were doing things, in Del Mar, and when I've just done the trials back in Gladstone, those were both venues that we did not have handicap accessible venues that had things built in, like ramps to get to the show office, or the accessible bathrooms, or even accessible roads that one could use a wheelchair on. And I think the number of times now where we've looked at where we look at a venue now and we actually look at it and say, what can we do to make this more accessible for all of our riders? And when we say all of our riders, we're really talking about our para-equestrians as well as our able-bodied riders. How can we make the show facility run smoother? In the event that we do have a number of para-equestrians that enter it for dressage or for any other discipline that they're participating in.
So Evan, kind of what's coming up for you in the next year personally? What are you going to be doing? I know you guys have Devonwood coming up, the dressage show.
For sure, yeah, we've got Dressage Devonwood that's coming up this July 19th to the 21st, and then after Dressage Devonwood is done for the year, we have a couple other contract shows that run at the facility. But we're looking on for 2014 of bringing on some new events that we haven't previously done, some new recognized shows. But one of the things actually that we're starting to look at is the possibility in these next 2 years of running a CPETI or a para-equestrian dressage competition on the international level. So Devonwood has yet to really spring forward and participate on the international scene yet. But it's primarily always been our concern was that we wouldn't have the riders coming from the various areas. As everybody in this conversation most likely knows, it's extremely expensive as the organizer to bring in the officiating panel. At least for dressage, I'm not sure what it's like for driving, but for dressage, the roster of who we have to have in order to have a CPETI or a CPEDI rather. To do something like what we had in Del Mar at the Dressage Affair would require bringing in international officiating bodies in order to get the FEI's permission to run the event, and I think it's something that we're starting to look at more and more because we're actually lucky enough to actually have quite a few para-equestrian riders in Oregon and in the surrounding areas. So whereas for the able-bodied dressage riders, it's been more of a challenge to attract or to even feasibly look at running a CDI. A CPEDI is actually a little bit more promising in terms of the number of people that we could bring in as far as riders go. And running it in conjunction with a standard recognized show. So you're starting to see if you look at our panel this year for Dressage at Devonwood, we've increasingly started to offer para-equestrian classes. For example, we're offering a para freestyle class this year at Dressage at Devonwood that we're hoping to get some participants for. So we're definitely looking at that as kind of one of the more developing and promising aspects of our business. So para-equestrianism for us is actually a kind of a target market for where we're looking forward to.
Really exciting. I know those on the West Coast will be excited to hear this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking to Diane and I. I appreciate it.
Definitely. It was my pleasure.
Right after this commercial, we have our guest, Keedy Cadwell. Keedy Cadwell coached the 2012 para-equestrian driving team in Breda, the Netherlands, last summer. She is the past coach and/or chef de keep of the para-equestrian driving team since in 2008, 4, 2, 2000, and 1998. She has represented the U.S. in 3 World Pair Championships, and she and her sister Randy are owners of Tremont Farm in Southern Pines, North Carolina, where they train driving horses and drivers, and are currently helping out with the summer camp of the young drivers.
Coach Jen here, host of the Horse Tip Daily Show on the Horse Radio Network. The way consumers interact with the brands they have trusted for years and those they are about to fall in love with for the first time is becoming more and more mobile, literally, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. Podcasts or internet radio shows like this one combine the new consumer preference for on-demand information and entertainment with the power of niche market audiences. Advertising on the Horse Radio Network podcasts allows you to reach the equestrian consumer using today's preferred on-demand delivery system. It's cost-effective and flexible, able to reinforce your existing marketing and social media strategies. To learn more about advertising on this show or any of the shows on the Horse Radio Network, contact us at 859-951-2022 or you can email us at glenn@horseradionetwork.com. That's Glenn with 2 N's at horseradionetwork.com. Come and join the Horse Radio Network family. You'll enjoy the ride.
Hi, Keedy. It's nice to meet you over the phone finally. I know a lot about you, and we're excited to talk to you. I was a little jealous because you've been on a couple other shows, so I had to have you on the Para-Equestrian show as well.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here.
And I wanted to tell you that I know I'm very involved with the para-dressage world. I'm a hunter rider, and I also done dressage, but my mom has me navigating one of her CDEs coming up in the end of July. So I haven't navigated in years. So I was very proud of that. I had to tell you that.
Oh, you'll have lots of fun.
I'm sure I will. It's a little Welsh pony, so I don't think I'll be, too crazy. I think it'll be a very exciting time.
Well, you never know. Sometimes the little ones can be quick.
Yes, I know. I was just thinking the same thing. You'd be better off with a bigger one.
So,
I
was lost. Oh, sorry, Diane. Go ahead.
I said, we won't scare you. It'll be just fine.
Keedy, I want to kind of hear from you about how the World Championships went for the para-equestrian driving team over there. Because I know when we were in London, I would have loved to. It was the same week. It was the same week as the Paralympics. So you guys were showing over there with the forehand and everything, and I know the para drivers were over there. So I'd love to hear from you how that all went.
Yeah, it was a fantastic show. Breda is a great show. And, the eventers were there also. So there was eventing and dressage. And so that's always fun when there's a lot here. But we had these great horses from Coast and Marie Durand and good equipment. And it gave everyone an opportunity to really show at a big international show. So it makes it fun for everybody, and everybody, learned a lot, I think. We had a relatively young team. There were 2 drivers who hadn't really done it before and who were just learning what the international level is, because it's a different ball game. So Diane had done it, but we had the other 2, so it was a young team, and hopefully we can build on that for next time.
Katie, can you explain a little bit about everyone was driving these leased horses and how hard it is to work with these drivers who actually you haven't worked with other than myself before?
So I have been to 4 world championships. My sister, who is a world champion, gold medalist, has been to 4 or 5 world championships. We take our own horses. We don't borrow horses and take them to just one show. If we do lease horses, we go over, we spend a summer. So what we're asking the disabled drivers to do is hard. It's really hard. So you're taking an animal, you're getting to drive it for a week, maybe 10 days if you're lucky, learn the animal, and then compete at an international level, at a world championship. Is not an easy task.
and this World Championships, I mean, you've been involved since 1998, I think, with the para-equestrian driving. And can you talk a little bit about the how the quality has changed and the level of competition itself?
Oh, the level has come up so much. There are better animals, much better adaptive equipment, and frankly, now we're showing at major international shows. It is no longer just the para at a show themselves. It now seems to be really linked with a major international show. I mean, all the foreign hands were at that show, and how great was that for everybody to see? And they were out there cheering everyone on too.
and our drivers at these world championships, they're using the exact same hazards, exact same cones course, exact same dressage fields of these foreign hands. And the foreign hands, they were having their national championships at the same time, right?
Yes, it was the Dutch National Championships, which Ice Grand Chardon won.
Right. Which was very nice to see.
For the audience members, they may not realize, but Diane was actually on the team. So I know Diane, how did you do there?
I finished in the middle of the pack this year. Usually at the World Championships, they've awarded medals for Grade 1 and Grade 2 drivers, as they do with the para-equestrian riding. And for whatever reason, this year they just awarded one medal. They combined both the Grade 1 and the Grade 2 classes. So which was a little bit more difficult. So you had your Grade 1 being the more disabled was competing directly with the other grades. So, and it was hard.
Unfair.
And it was hard.
Unfair for them to do that.
Is the previous 2 World Championships, I'd actually taken my own horse. And so it was hard again to lease a horse and drive. I mean, I drove her like 6 times, and she was an outstanding horse. She had just actually competed in the four-in-hand World Championships as the leader of Joe Yoder's team in Reisenbeck, Germany.
Oh, wow.
So this was the quality of the horses we had to borrow.
Wow. And Katie, as the chef, as the coach, how do you prepare these drivers? Because I know in para-dressage we used to do borrowed horses up until this year. This year it's all, now you have to use your own horses for everything. And how did you prepare these drivers for these new horses? I guess, was there a time period before that you got to know these horses? Tell me about that.
Some of the horses I actually knew because I've spent a lot of summers at Costa Rica. And then other ones, because of how I drive, I'm good at figuring out quickly how to get the best out of the horse. And I think that's kind of my specialty, is to go in with these drivers and say, okay, this is how you need to drive to get the most out of this horse, even though you only have a few days to learn the horse. So it really, it's a hard job. they have a large task in front of them. So we're saying, here you are, here's a new horse, here's some new equipment, because we have to be pretty quick, too, as far as European equipment at adapting things. So you've got to, some people will bring their own reins or that kind of equipment, but carriages, we need to adapt brake pedals. Those kind of small things make a huge difference in the para driver's ability to compete.
Oh yeah, and then go out there and compete and do cones and dressage in addition to the marathon.
Yes.
Wow. I know that was always something we had to work on with the borrowing horses with dressage, with the adaptive equipment, and because the riders couldn't always bring everything with them because certain saddles only work on certain horses, so we had to adapt those kinds of items. So yeah, I completely understand what you're talking about.
And like in my particular case, I shipped my own carriage because I have an adapted seat and everything, and I have a handbrake, though, that I can't use. And most driving horses are used to the brake being used. My horses, that I drive, I mean, they've gotten used to the fact that I hardly ever use the brake. But and so that was a big thing, and I had to teach my groom, who didn't normally ride with me, when to use the brake for the horse, because the horse I was driving really expected it. And so Kitty was very helpful with a lot of that, because since also I'm not used to using the brake, she was yelling, "Use it now! Now! Too late!
Earlier, sooner, more!"
And as one of the drivers, we have to pretty much just buy into the fact that basically this is what Kitty does, and she can figure these horses out, and however she tells us to drive them, we have to drive them, even if it's not the way we normally drive. You just kind of have to buy into that and accept it as fact.
Well, you have to have a lot of trust and a lot of faith in the situation, because you're being told, oh, it's okay, drive this horse even though you don't know it, and I'd like you to gallop into this hazard and make the turn, so don't worry about it, you'll be fine.
Yes, a lot of... Yes.
Were these horses used for para-driving before, or no?
Yes, the one that Diane had was the one that Joe Yoder had used to lead of the team, and Coase had also competed that horse. The other one had been used at in Coase's team at the indoors, and was with I think Hungarian driver in a pair. And the last one, the pony, was Coase's daughter's pony. So it had done everything. It had not competed advanced, but it had done all the driving shows with his daughter and riding. And actually, I think it is going this year to the Pony World Championships with an Australian driver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a nice pony. But they hadn't been used, they were competitive driving horses, but they hadn't been used with para drivers before.
No, never with the para drivers.
Wow.
They were just very well behaved, very well trained horses. Because, they have to wait a little longer while we get people in carriages, and, there's some things that the horses have to learn a little more too. So, they all adapted well to the drivers.
Wow. Have you seen a big difference, I guess, in Europe versus in the United States with the para-equestrian drivers as far as the numbers of people?
There are a lot more drivers in Europe. In Holland and in Germany, you see them a lot at open shows, competing at advanced, so competing at a top level. And actually, they have enough drivers that they will have specific para divisions, and we don't have that here.
Wow. And what do you think we're kind of lacking in the United States from for this discipline? What do we need to get to that point?
Well, again, it's the same issue that all drivers have. We're a big country, so it's hard to get everyone together. I mean, as Diane said, she's on one coast and we're on this coast, so that makes it hard. And then I think that there isn't always, people don't know about it, which again, Diane's working on. And we don't have the pool to choose from. So if we could get more people out there, that's our big thing.
And at least here in the West and in California, we are starting to see more and more para drivers. Like we had 5 at a show in May in California, and we had 3 at another one. And yes, and it's across all the different levels. In driving, we have training, preliminary, intermediate, and advanced for those who don't know. And these drivers were at all these different levels. But to me, that was exciting that there was actually 5 at one show. Yeah. We'll build this pool of drivers.
Well, Katie, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today with Diane and giving your input on para driving.
No problem.
I wanted to say, I guess, a good retirement to Barbara Grassmeyer and her horse, Nebus, her mare. They are both retiring from international competition. Barbara is a 2-time Paralympian, and she's decided that it is time. Her horse is a little older, and it's time to kind of sit back, let the others do their thing, and she's going to be working now from off the horse. She's going to be working on the ground with para dressage, and of course she'll still compete nationally, but not internationally. I want to thank Diane Kastama for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
And you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on the website at dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search for Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. You can learn more about the United States Para-Equestrian Association at uspea.org and on Facebook. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. And have a great week, everybody.